Hey, this video has been through a lot so far. Initially, the plan was to make a Roblox horror game video similar to the one I made a week ago on Fortnite, but that's changed. After spending hours searching for an actual horror game, in the end there was not a single scary game in Roblox that I could find. I had the same problem persist when I try to play Minecraft horror mods, where yet again, most of those mods aren't scary at all. They're just loud and obnoxious. Alright, boy old one, I'm going to kill you now, boy old one. Ah! That was loud as fuck! So why aren't these scary? There's three major factors that I like to think about when it comes to keeping a game scary: tension, vulnerability, and atmosphere. I think it's best to expand on each of these separately to give you a proper idea of what I'm talking about. For tension, horror games need to keep you on edge. The idea that regardless of the situation you're in, you are not safe. Roblox and Minecraft horror lack tension to an extreme degree. Every single Roblox horror game I played lacks tension because so often do these games follow the same route, where the first 90% of the game you're just doing whatever, and then finally the monster appears or will get you for the final 10%. Minecraft horror mods have minimal tension because blink and you'll realize, oh, you're dead already, with the world's loudest sound accompanying you. While separate issues, horror like Roblox persists in other games as well, like full-on indie games, where you're safe for 99% of the whole thing and it makes no attempt to keep you on your toes for all of it. Atmosphere ties into tension because a good atmosphere can leave you on edge. But to be more specific, a lot of these horror games don't make the most of their settings, or make an attempt to try to make the game scarier. Example 1. Convenience stores are a common setting for plenty of these games, yet none of them seem to try to make them appear scary at all. Besides dimming the lights and adding some trash, it's a completely bare-bones setting. It's not impossible to turn a retail store into a horror setting, but that seems like too much work for people to do, so they'll settle with just a store that has not much inside to keep you on edge. Next up, music and sound effects are some of the biggest factors when it comes to creating a horror setting. Could you imagine playing Amnesia with a soundtrack like Sprunky? An example of setting the tone for your game and keeping it creepy with the sound design would be the homeless map I played not too long ago on Fortnite. Yes, I am comparing Fortnite to Roblox. The map actually scared me, and that had to do with combining all three elements I mentioned to create a good horror game, and if the map lacked even just the sound design it had, it'd fall flat fast. Finally, vulnerability. Horror is scary because you're afraid. You have something to be afraid of. Whether it be a phobia, a loud jump scare, or being chased by a monster, you're vulnerable when playing these games. To explain how to create vulnerability, we'll use Amnesia as an example. Yeah, look, I'll make the third Amnesia video someday, I swear. The game has mechanics in play that never keep you safe. The darkness and light management, the constant threat of being chased and having to hide, and lastly, the insanity that can kill you if reaching too high. Here's a funny detail about the insanity of the game. The game itself says the higher your insanity, the more likely the monster is to catch you, but that was nothing more than just a lie. This single, simple lie makes the entire game far more scary than it really is. Am I saying games should just start lying to pretend to be scarier than they are? No. But this is a smart example of how something so small can ultimately change the way the entire game is played and perceived. So we covered all three major columns I mentioned, and each of these intersect with each other. You can't have tension without a proper atmosphere, and you can't feel vulnerable without any tension. So let's draw comparisons. The best Fortnite horror map I played compared to the best Roblox horror I played in my search for good horror games. You might call this a random comparison or an unfair one, but this video was initially stemming from comparing these two in the first place. To keep things simple, we'll tackle both at the same time, beginning, middle, and end, with how they make the most of their settings and how good they are at scaring you. In Homeless, the tone of the map is set instantaneously with the atmosphere and description, whereas the Roblox map Mental is just a goofy intro cutscene and then slapped straight into the map. Story is subjective, so we won't mention that. However, what isn't subjective is handling jump scares. The jump scares in Homeless are some of the best in my opinion because they don't follow the traditional crappy way of jump scares like shoving a loud noise in your face and a mid-scary PNG to call it a day. Instead, the jump scares use the hobo himself with zero loud noise. Minus the last one, but it's the surprise that scares you, not the noise. Meanwhile, in Mental, the jump scares there are just boring. A spider appears on the screen with super loud noise blaring in your ears until you click the box enough to swipe it off. This is an issue for a lot of games too, where they associate loud noise with horror and call it a day. I'm looking at you, FNAF. Next up is tension and vulnerability. Safe to say, but there's not a minute where I felt safe when playing Homeless, inside of those tunnels. But in Mental, like I said in the beginning, 90% of the map is completely safe except for 1 or 2 rooms, designed for avoiding the monster.
It's got me! It's got me! Oh, save me!
Ultimately, every aspect of horror is much better in Homeless, while Mental is good for entertainment and not much else. Though, comparing two games you've never heard of is probably not the most entertaining thing in the world, which is why I'm going to draw another comparison here to what I consider the best horror game of all time, Amnesia, and its sequel, A Machine for Pigs. So these are both extremely terrifying games, and professionally made as well. But to spoil things here, A Machine for Pigs is not nearly as scary as its predecessor, The Dark Descent. Let's cover that. For starters, the very beginning of both games aim to make you feel vulnerable and fearful as soon as you can move around. But while 2 minutes deep in the first game, I was already pausing the game feeling absolutely helpless. Oh my fucking god, why am I doing this? For the second, I felt far safer because I never felt as though I was always one corner away from running into trouble as the first game. Next is tension, and more specifically, the way the lanterns and how lighting works in both games. In the original Amnesia, Daniel the protagonist has nyctophobia, aka forcing you to keep in the light, and your lantern, which is the only way to keep a light with you, has limited oil, meaning you have to manage it at all times or suffer in the darkness. Meanwhile, in the sequel, Mandus has no phobia of the dark, but of homes, and has an electric lantern which will never run out, although it's not as bright and may flicker in the presence of manpigs. He has no insanity meter either, so the ticking time bomb of running out of sanity is never present, as you could probably play the entire game in pitch darkness without any consequences. Not that it is required for any horror game, but resource management was removed entirely for A Machine for Pigs, and its loss can be felt. As for atmosphere and music, off topic, but A Machine for Pigs has such an amazing soundtrack. It's chilling and fitting of the time period, but unfortunately, it does not make me feel scared as the music in the original did. The chilling and uncomfortable score that plays in the very beginning of the game is what made me feel so terrified in the first place, giving a feeling that you're not welcome or alone in this place, and that's amazing. While I could be unfair here and say that Amnesia The Dark Descent has a scarier atmosphere than A Machine for Pigs, that is natural considering most of the sequel isn't meant to be in the setting of an abandoned and empty castle, but of the streets of London and an ever so giant factory. They both make the most of their setting, and they do a great job of it as well. Lastly, vulnerability. Unfortunately, this is the biggest difference between both games and what I consider the nail in the coffin as for why Amnesia The Dark Descent is far scarier than A Machine for Pigs. To give a brief summary, since this has gone on for quite a while already, these two games play very differently. The original Amnesia puts you in a hub location for each time you progress, and you have to go through each individual room in the area to move forward. But inside these rooms, anything can happen. Meanwhile, A Machine for Pigs is fairly linear. You'll most likely be aware of where you're going to go each time you go forward, and there will be designated areas where you might encounter a monster, but it's never quite the same as the original. Picture it like this. In one scenario, you have to enter the same room as a monster and navigate around it and exit out without being caught, all while managing your insanity, compared to rushing past the monster and being safe afterwards. That's probably the best way I can depict the differences between two games in the way confrontations are handled with the monsters inside, without just trying to sound like I have a bias in this, which I don't. And to end both this section and to transition into the next one, the original Amnesia had more elements of survival horror to it, which elevated just how bad of a situation you can be in. There will never be a moment in Machine for Pigs that can compare to being inside the dungeon prison with no light, no oil, and hiding away from the monster, constantly lurking around any corner waiting for you. It still had a better story though. By mentioning survival horror, I also want to elaborate that different horror genres scare people in different ways. Psychological horror typically makes you scared, not in an urgent sense, but in a more disturbing manner, as opposed to being chased like in a survival horror. So this is my not so subtle way of saying I'll be making dedicated videos to different genres of horror, and more or less my input of what makes it work, or what it lacks, and a rating at the end, more or less. There's not a lot left to add now that we made it to the end of this video, but if there's one thing I can add, it's that lousy horror games just bore me and rub me off the wrong way. This video was created because after about 3 videos worth of accidentally playing mediocre horror, I wanted to voice my thoughts on the matter that these poor excuses of horror are just bad. When I play a horror game, I go in with an open mind, but if my time gets wasted on something that didn't scare me, but is a glorified fetch quest with occasional loud noise, or a mod that adds nothing but a loud PNG that instantly kills you, I'm not going to be very happy with my experience. That covers about everything then. Let's thank all of my patrons and... oh wait. I don't have any. Yeah, I just made one. And that's all I've got to say. See ya.